Alright guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to put in new seats in this head because I kind of got a little carried away when I was polishing and I damaged all the seats. So I'm going to have to put in new ones. Now, I know what you're going to say. Hey, I've been on Rock Auto. You can't get the seats anymore. And you're right, you can't. But what I did do is I found some that dimensionally will work. They're the right OD for the pockets. They're a very similar ID to what's there, but I can always machine them out to match the port. And they're all a little taller than they should be, which means I'll have to machine the seat down a little further. A little more time consuming, but it's my own project, so I don't really care. But it is possible to still do seats in these. They're just not, you're not looking for the exact for the make and model. You're gonna have to go dimensionally. And that's what I did. And what I've got is, from the fine people over at SBI, we have some SB 1375s-18s and for the intake, and the exhaust are some SB 1125-4s. So they are a slightly harder seat. I mostly found a seat that was fit in the hole, really. So that's what we're going to install. But I'm going to remove these seats first, and I got it in the head machine because I've decided that I'm going to machine the seats out. I mean, there's multiple ways to do this. I could put it in the oven and hope that they fall out or tap them out. But then when you start tapping with punches and stuff, you start hurting the inside and it looks all gross. And then you're playing with it when it's like 500 degrees and it's hot and that's just, it's not a good time. So I've decided, or I guess in the second instance, you could weld on the seat and the seat will shrink. But in the second before the seat actually starts shrinking, it'll expand a bit and then it'll shrink. And I've heard of, in some cases, we had a customer come in that was finding oversized seats because this happened to him. He welded out some seats and they slightly expanded and they blew the OD of the ID of the pocket size, and then the seats that were supposed to fit in there didn't fit anymore because the pocket had been blown open a little bit, and I don't want to hurt the aluminum at all. So I'm going to set a cutter up and cut about 20 thou smaller than the OD of these seats and machine them out so there's just a very tiny little shell of a seat left in there, and then I can go in there with a punch and break it and not do any damage. I do remove seats like this all the time, so that's why I've chosen this way, is I don't have to work on something that's hot, and I just find it easier to remove material to solve my problems. But that's what us machinists do. So I'm going to get a tool set up for the right diameter, and we're going to hammer out these intakes, and then we'll roll it over and do the exhaust. All right, so I got my tool set up, and I got the first one out. And yeah, so I'm going to carry on with all the rest of them. And yeah, I did check. I'm going to have to do these a different way. My tooling doesn't go small enough to cut out the exhaust seats on this particular machine, and I don't think our other one actually does either, because primarily what we do around here is much bigger stuff. This is pretty small. So I can machine these ones out, and I will do the intakes that way, but the exhausts, I think I'm going to put this in the oven, get it hot, and then I'll hit those with cold shock spray. And that should kind of have the same effect as welding, but it shouldn't make it expand first because it already has expanded with the head at the heat. And all I'm going to do is cold shock it and it'll shrink really quick and that'll crack it and break it. And then they should just fall out of there. And I think that's the second least invasive method, other than machining them out. So I think that's my plan for those, but I'll set you up and you can watch me knock out these other 7. All right, so I'll explain this tool, because if you've watched any of the other machine shops like Jim's or Josh or Powell Machining that do engine machining, they all do this a different way. Jamsey likes to have the little ball level that they put on their pilot. Actually, I don't know if I've seen Powell do it. And I think Josh, he doesn't even use an air float machine like this anyway. He does it all on his Bridgeport, which hats off to him. Good job. So what this is this is an inclometer or an inclometer. It measures incline. And so I put it on this way and you eyeball it 90 degrees this way. And then the readout up here tells you in degrees how out you are. So currently, without adjusting, this thing is 0.001 degrees tilted towards us, this side of things. And then you'll zero it that way, and then you take the unit and you spin it this way, and you make it parallel to the machine table up here. And then whatever number reads there, you put the inclinometer on this post, which is part of the machine, if I can put it on there properly, there we go, and you square that up, and then you adjust the machine to match what you had down here. So that's a brief explanation of how that all works and how you center the machine get the hole and everything perfectly level, and then you can go and do your machining. As for the head, it just floats around on air. It's just an air unit, not quite as fancy as Nicholas's Surdy. I would love to have one, but this is what I have to work with, so this is what I'm going to work with. However, when I do cut the seats, I'll actually do it over there on our Rottler, because it is a much better machine, and I'd like to give it a try running that unit. So, but for cutting them out, this is roughing work. This old wiggly bitch can kind of handle her. So let's carry on. Guys, so we've got all the intake side machined, and you can see some places, right there where you go in with the punch just to kind of break it apart. I mean, that happens, but I can easily fix that before we put in new seats. That's not a big deal. So I'm going to throw this in the wash, and then we'll throw it in the oven and get those ones out. And then I'm going to measure those pockets, because I measured these pockets at about 1.318. And the seats I have are 1.375, and I have trouble believing that those seats were held in with 62 thou of crush. That's a lot. That's a lot. So I think I might have to go find some other seats, and the seat dimensions that were listed for SBI on the Rock Auto are actually wrong. So either way, I'll figure this out. I can just dimensionally find seats. I can go into our stockroom. In fact, I'm probably going to go into our stockroom right now and see if I can find some 1.325s. Would be perfect. That'd be about 7 thou crush, which is what an aluminum head should have. Typically, your cast iron have about 4 to 5 thou crush when you put a seat in, and the aluminum stuff is more like 7 to 8. So if the pocket's at 18 and the seats are at 325, that would make sense. So I will, because I don't think I'm supposed to pocket these out to fit a 1.375, because the 1.375 seat, if you actually measure it, is 1.380. 1.375 is the size you're supposed to hit on your pocket diameter when you cut it. So for an aluminum one to get those to fit, I kind of want to see 1.373, but I don't think I want to open these pockets up for that. It's not like I'm putting in bigger sized valves, and I don't know what kind of room I have if I open these up. I know it's only 30 thou a side is what I'd be opening it up, which isn't much, but I'm not 100% sure of the architecture under the chamber as to whether or not that's enough to hit water or enough to thin it out to where, over time, a crack could form behind the seat into the water jacket. So although I know quite a bit about these cars, I don't know 100% about what it looks like behind the deck. And I'd like to know, but I don't want to cut apart one of these heads to find out. And I don't have a wrecked one to cut apart to find out. So if I had a wrecked one, I totally would, but I don't. So that being said, we're pretty much done for this. And we'll see you when we put that in the oven. All right, so head's in the oven, and we're going to try to cold shock out these seats. I really hope this goes well. I did have it in there face down, hoping that some of them would fall out. They did not. So, well, hopefully this works. It worked the last time I did it. Well, that didn't work. Alright, so I did have to beat that one out kind of old school, and you know, it's not pretty, but now I got a hole I can measure so I can at least get the right seats. And I think tomorrow I'll just put it in there for an extra 25 degrees and hope that I can get them out by shocking them still. Maybe not. I might have to beat them all out and then go in and fix some of the damage, and that just is the way it is. But well, shit, this didn't go exactly the way I wanted to, but no, whatever. Oftentimes things don't go the way you want them to, so we'll regroup, rethink, and get back at her later. Alright, so I've decided not to do what I said in the last scene, and I'm going to try to weld them out, and hopefully they shrink enough. And at the very least, if I just put a little bit of weld here, around in here, if I do have to reheat them up and they don't shrink and just fall out by welding, I'll at least have something to run my punch against and tap out so I don't get any damage here. So, let's give her a go and hope for the best. Alright, I don't know how well that worked. I didn't hear the seats cracking and popping, which they normally do when you hit them with weld. You'll hear them go crack, pop, and they'll kind of pop out. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll try just giving it a light tap with a punch, and we'll see if they move. Okay, so I've got our seat problems figured out. The original ones that they quote, the 1125 53s, I got 52s. That just means they're slightly taller with a slightly different profile in here, but it won't matter. Since they're taller, I'll be machining them down and I'll get exactly what I want in them. That's no big deal. However, and then these ones, instead of being 1.375, these are out of some breed of Ford, and they're a 1.339E. Now the E means exact, so the amount of crush is not built into the seat, so I have to take 1.339 minus 7 or 8 thou to cut the pocket to the right size. But that means I'm only opening up the pocket by about 14 thou, which is next to nothing, and I'm sure I'm safe to do that. However, on the exhaust, I'm only opening that pocket up 5 thou because they're at 1.120 and these are 1.125. And if I measure the outside of this, it'll measure 1.132 because the crush is already built in. Yep, 1.130, 1.5 with caliper, so 1.132. So the 7 thou is already there, so I'll just try to hit 125, 124, 125, and it'll be 7 or 8 thou crush. That'll be perfect. And on these ones, I'll just try to hit 131, basic, or 331, or 1 inch 331. So I guess I've got my cutter all set up to do that. My little pocket cutter here for doing small diameters. It'll clearance my spring and everything. So let's spin around and start cutting.
the intake side all pocketed out, and they're all sitting at about 1.331 to 331.5, which is 7.5 to 8 thou press fit, crush fit, which is absolutely perfect. I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna set the cutter up to do the exhaust side, flip that head around so that it's easier to see, so it's not tilted this way, because then it's real hard to see coming down on an angle like that. So I'm gonna get all that done, and we'll hammer out the exhaust. Alright, so we got the intake pockets all opened up to our 7 thou crush for the seats. And we got the exhaust opened up, so it's at 7 to 8 thou crush as well, which was pretty difficult because I only had to peel like 4 or 5 thou out of these holes. That's really nothing. That's like a skim cut, which with this kind of tooling was actually kind of difficult to do. This one we peeled about 14 thou out of those holes, so it basically doesn't even look like I did anything, which is great. So the next step is to throw those seats in the freezer, throw this in the oven, get this hot, get those cold, put those seats in. Okay, so I got the seats out of the freezer, head's in the oven. I'm gonna pull the head out of the oven, start hammering those in as fast as I can. There we go. Those seats are all installed. They're all sitting flush. Yeah, they're sitting up high, but I purposely ordered taller ones. So we'll trim those down, get the 100% of the seat profile in, and then trim them back down to what we need them to be. But they're in there. So let her cool down, do a valve job in the morning. Okay, so it's out of the oven. It's all cooled down, and I got it all set up. There's the tolerance for our installed height. So let's cut in these valve seats. Alright, so what I just did there is I put some Prussian bluing paste on the back of the valve, and I stamped it into the seat. And what that's going to do is that's going to tell me where the seat is sitting on the back of the valve. You can see that it is pretty much centered in the center of the valve where it stamped. So that tells me that I got my cutter set right for where I want that. And if you're looking at this valve going, hey, that looks not stock, you're right, but we'll get to that later in the video. So now that I know that I got the seat in the right place, I'm not quite cut to the right depth, I will now measure with a different valve my installed height. So 5. And we want about 5.7. So that'll be about 50 thou. Alright, so I've got the valve seats all cut in, and they're all pulling good vacuum. But they are a little tall still, so I'm going to come in with a tool and trim them down flush with the chamber, get rid of that little step there, and blend everything all in nice. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with how this is turning out. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just opening up the inside of the seat to match the ports. So the seat started out a little smaller on the ID. I'm just going to open them up so they blend in and match the port. I got my tool set up, so I'm just running it through real quick, and then I'm going to come back and chop the tops down. Okay, so I got the cutter set up and I got the first one chopped down, so now I'm just going to go on down the line and chop them all down, and then we're done the intakes and we can go on to doing the exhausts. Alright, so we got them all opened up, we got them all trimmed down. They are still sitting up a little bit, but I'll deal with that with some emery cloth or whatever, and it'll be okay. We'll deburr everything real nice and soft, so it shouldn't create any hot spots. Because if I cut any further down, I'm going to start hitting my actual valve seat, and I'll lose all of my top 30-degree angle, and I don't want to do that. So I'll deburr the back side of this where it's sharp and try to blend that the best I can. It's just because whenever I did the chambers, I took too much aluminum down. So, and yeah, we might have to blend a little bit in the ports too, but other than that, it should be okay. So we're halfway done. We got the intake side done, it vacs. The valves are happy, they seat where I want them to seat. It turned out perfect. All the installed heights are right almost just 5 thou shy of the middle of spec, so perfect. And guess we just got to flip it around, get set up and do the exhausts. And then this thing's done. All right, so I got it all flipped around, ready to do the exhaust. So basically same thing again, just another 8 times of, they're even the same installed height. So going for the same number, make everything all nice and equal and balanced, and let's get these going. Perfectly imprinted valve seat right in the middle. It's kind of hard to see because it's a little hot, so this stuff gets a little runny, but perfect. Right where I wanted it at 1.568 to 570. It matches all the intakes, so now I just got to do that 7 more times. Alright, so now that all the valve seats are cut and they're all vacuuming absolutely awesome with no spring, they're pretty much pulling maximum vac of my table with no spring. So with a spring on there, they will definitely seal. So the only thing left to do is change the insert over, trim down the tops, and open up the ID to match into the port.
So hey, there we go, we're done. All the exhaust seats are cut, the valves are vacuuming, we got them trimmed down, we got them blended to the ports the best we can. I might have to go into the die grinder in a couple places with a flapper wheel and just be gentle to blend them a little bit better. And just a little bit of deburring in the top of these seats, and we are good to go. So the next step is I'll give it a light resurface and then a wash, put new frost plugs in, put the valves and build it. And I'll go through all the parts I'm putting in it when we go to build it. Alright guys, so we're ready to assemble the cylinder head now. And so I've got my valves all laid out, and these are not regular stock replacement valves. These are an upgrade. Now, I believe these are the only ones still available kind of off the shelf for these motors. But these are the performance set of valves from SI Valves. And if we look under the Saturn valves, you can get a swirled polished performance valve. And these ones are the SEV 1052s and 1052-1, or yeah, 10521 and 10520. And what these are, and they offer them including for the 3rd gen cars as well. So the 99 and on with the smaller stem, you can still get these performance valves. They're swirl polished. They are stainless steel and stellite tipped as well. So these are pretty well awesome, short of having a set of custom valves made for you. In Canada here, I ordered these through my shop. SCI Valves doesn't sell to just the average customer. You have to order them through your machine shop. But they are fairly reasonably priced for what you're getting. This set cost me, I think, about $450, meaning these valves are about $25 Canadian each, which when you break it down that way, really isn't that bad. So I got a set of these, and I also have a set of springs. Now, if you know anything, you know that Fidanza used to make a set of springs for the Saturn, and they were a dual spring setup with a titanium retainer. Well, you can't get that anymore. They don't offer it, and they don't even have it in their computer system. If you phone them and ask them to make the old part number, they'll just get confused trying to look it up. They'll never find it. I'm sure the information's in some banker's box in the back of a warehouse of theirs somewhere, because they would have to keep that kind of stuff. But are they going to be able to make you a set? Not affordably. But I did go and find some springs dimensionally. These are also Fidanza, but they're a beehive, a single beehive. They are almost the same dimensions as our stock one, but they double the seat pressure. Now these are actually for the Toyota 2JZ GTE motor, and this is an upgraded pack spring for that engine. And it is almost dimensionally the same as our spring, except it's a little smaller down here in the ID, so it won't fit over top of our stem seal. So I went and found some other stem seals that will work. Here are some stem seals. They will fit over our size of guide. They fit inside the spring. They locate the spring exactly the same as ours does. These are out of a 3.5 liter Chrysler out of the Intrepids in Canada, the 3.5 liter V6. The stem seal does sit 100 thou taller than our stock stem seal, but it will not crash under normal stock cam lift. I've already checked. So you do still have clearance between the retainer and the seal, so you won't smash into it. The other thing is these springs from Fidanza, you can get a titanium retainer and keepers for it. However, the Toyota 2JZ motor runs a 6mm stem. The Saturn runs a 7mm stem. So you can't use the retainer and the keepers for the Toyota to go with these springs. You will have to reuse your stock Saturn retainers and keepers to hold on to this valve. But that is the solution I have come up with by spending hours and hours and hours sourcing part specs out there and scrambling to find something that would work. Now, our stock seat pressure on our stock springs is about 60-ish pounds. The beefy springs that Fidanza used to sell for us brought it up to about 110. This one sits at about 120 at a very similar installed height. So this spring should be No reason I can't use it and get the same effect out of what used to be offered in the Firea for these engines. So if you guys are looking to try to build a performance cylinder head and you're running into parts problems in getting upgraded parts, this is what I've found that you might be able to do. I'm thinking it should work. I can't find a reason it won't. But again, I won't know until I put it on the motor and actually see. But this is the solution I've kind of come up with through where I work, looking at parts and coming up with stuff. This seems to be the solution to build a performance-oriented Saturn cylinder head in 2024 with parts that are available and aren't incredibly expensive by having them custom made. But so those are the parts that are going in the head. Let's slam this bitch together. Alright, so before I tighten the cams down, I pulled it out and I vac tested it on the Rottler over there because it's got a way better vac table than I've got, and the pads that it's sitting on are getting in the way of the few ports, so I couldn't get my pads in to actually vac it. But we're pulling like 23, 24 inches of vacuum on every port, so this thing is sealed up tighter than a nun's yoo-hoo on a Sunday. So we're doing good. This thing is going to be pretty awesome, I think. So I'm going to tighten those cams down, and then the head is pretty much done. I just got to put the last 3 frost plugs in the front here that I can't get to while it's in the machine, and then we're done. She's ready to roll. So I got the cams snugged down. I'll torque them at home when I put it on the motor. So we're pretty much done. I'm just going to slam in those other 3 frost plugs, and that'll about wrap up this video. So there you go, guys. That's how you do seats and stuff in a Saturn head. I don't know if anyone else has done it before. I haven't heard of it. I'm sure I'm not the only guy to ever have put seats in a Saturn head, but probably the most recent. And yeah, there's an idea on how to put better valves and springs in one of these heads so that you can possibly push a little power. But that should wrap it up for this video, and we'll see you guys next time.